If you don't know who or what Shantae is, I can't really say I blame you, but I will have to acknowledge your lack of insight into a beloved franchise and a character representing the 2D puzzle platforming genre. Previous games in this series have always garnered critical acclaim, but the biggest issue the series faced was right from the start with lackluster sales of the original game Shantae, which was released on the Game Boy Color in June of 2002. Which was almost a year after the successor, the Game Boy Advance, was released. The game sadly met with poor sales despite very positive reviews. It was unfortunate, and it just got overlooked by everyone rushing to play the new kid on the block, the Game Boy Advance. Remember when I said I had to acknowledge the fact that you didn't know anything about the series? Well, I've got a confession to make. This is the first Shantae game I've ever played. Now, as someone who's followed the video game industry very closely, as well as working in the video game retail field for over 10 years, I've always known about the little half-genie and was well aware of how much people loved her and her games. I'd always meant to play them, however I just never picked the games up myself. It happens all the time. There are always games that I want to play and I just never do. I'm sure it happens to you. It happens to the best of us. Now, after playing Shantae and the Pirate's Curse, I'm a little bit ashamed of that fact. Developer WayForward has always kept Shantae on their minds. They never gave her up, and finally in 2010, they released a new title in the series, Shantae: Risky's Revenge, for Nintendo's DSi, and eventually it made its way to iOS, Steam, and PlayStation 4. Now, Pirate's Curse is the third game in the series, and thanks to fan funding through Kickstarter, the fourth game, Half Genie Hero, will be coming to all major platforms sometime in the future. It pretty much seems that fans don't want her lost to time either. So now that we've got some backstory and my sad confession on the record and out of the way, we can finally move on to the real meat of the piece here, the thing you came for, the review of the current game. In Shantae and the Pirate's Curse, you of course play as Shantae, a half-genie who lives with her uncle in Scuttletown in Sequin Land. After the events of Risky's Revenge, our hero is left magicless and unsure of herself. She's now human and no longer has the ability to protect her town like she once did, but she's gonna try, with the help from her friends and her family. At the start of the adventure, Shantae wakes up to find that her town's been sold to the Ammo Baron, who's now the mayor, and he's already begun destruction of the town. He has no love for our hero, and he's ordered her to be punished for being the town's protector. Now, while under house arrest, she's attacked and captured by her nemesis, the seafaring pirate Risky Boots, who's angry that Shantae has stolen from her. During this exchange, Risky and Shantae discover that it was actually Risky's mentor who's stolen from her, from beyond the grave, no less, and has taken her henchmen under control via dark magic. With the Pirate Master's plan figured out, Risky reluctantly teams up with Shantae in order to recover her stolen tools of the trade and to stop him from resurrecting himself and taking over the world, as evil villains are wont to do. I think in hindsight, Risky, it was probably a good idea that you teamed up with your goody-two-shoes nemesis. It worked out in the end. Good job. The story as presented is your typical fare and concludes as such, but I was endeared to it almost immediately. The interactions between each character really made me feel like this was a lived-in world, and you could clearly see threads from previous games have carried through to this one. Now, as someone who has no knowledge of what the histories and relationships each character has with one another, and definitely being able to see that there are ample references to the past, I never felt lost. WayForward has done a wonderful job of keeping the tone of the characters consistent while being accommodating to newcomers like me. It doesn't hurt that almost every character is likable. It's mostly due to the way that just about every line of dialogue is written as some kind of joke. The back and forth is very quippy. You can see that a lot of care when it's talking about the jokes and getting the jokes in there and getting the set pieces just right, and almost every one of them works. I found myself taking screenshot after screenshot after screenshot with my Kinect due to the funny one-liners that batted back and forth between each character and the weird situations they got themselves in. But I was also really attracted to the beautiful artwork. Just take a look for yourself. You can see right here. The game's played with a high-definition pixelated look, which is really charming. The animations bounce back and forth really nicely, and the beautiful coloration of not only the characters, but the various islands you traverse to is bright and lush. I never got tired of looking at it. For the story scenes, the speakers show up with word boxes and a still image of their reactions or emotions within the scene. They look great and really pop on the screen. Something else you may have noticed in these pictures is that, all the females look really sexy. Playing the game for 5 minutes, you'll really be able to see it. It's readily apparent that the artwork is designed to please the adults in more than just color palette. Now, I'm not ashamed to admit that I loved it. It's not overly sexual that a child playing would notice or see anything that might be amiss, but enough of adult tendencies are there that for the older people ready to enjoy this game, you can enjoy it in a different aspect as well. The E10 rating does seem pretty appropriate here, so I don't think you have anything to worry about if you're a parent looking to get this for a kid. The action from moment to moment is smooth and enjoyable on pretty much all accounts. The game very much feels and plays like a humorous and simpler old-school Metroid or classic GBA DS Castlevania style game, and I don't use the term simpler in a derogatory way. What we get here is very solid. Mechanics gel very well together and don't trip over each other at all. Movement and platforming or jumping feels really tight, and the game progression is concise, and I rarely had no idea of what I needed to do next. It all felt pretty polished, and it felt really good playing it. Everything just worked. With the mention of Metroid or Castlevania, you probably get a certain idea in your head of what the game has in store for you, and your assumptions would be correct. There are collectibles. You get new powers in the form of risky stolen items, and with those items, not only do you get the answer to a puzzle in the current level, but also the answer to a previous level's hidden area, and to find said collectibles. Along with stolen goods, you collect gems used to buy things like healing items, new moves, upgrades to your hair, which is your main weapon of choice, which is kind of brilliant. We don't see that too often these days, and risky stolen possessions. It's a familiar loop, but it's honestly one that, while as old as gaming, it still feels really fun to play through it. With the style of game so finely tuned, we also get classic boss battles to look forward to. Now, some say retro, I use classic. Distinct and neat-looking end-level bosses, each with their own patterns to learn, to overcome, and earn victory. Now, that's not to say the normal enemies are dull-looking and pushovers, no. On the contrary, the same level of care was put into their designs and patterns too. Now, with each level seeing a different theme, snowy, underworld, forest, desert, etc., the staples, there are plenty of variations to curse at for impeding your progress. Now, in those levels, we sometimes get a little gameplay diversion from the norm. One section may have you stealth your way through it, another may have you in an endless runner of sorts. They were welcome switch-ups every now and then, and I really enjoyed them. If you're wondering about the way game saves, I may keep sounding like a broken record here when I say it, but if you're familiar with the classics like Metroid and Castlevania, where you find a save room in a strategic spot on the map, you already know how it works. I have no qualms with this type of saving because I grew up with this. I grew up with worse. We've had worse today. But with that said, I do worry that, some of the newer generation of players who aren't really familiar with this style of game, they may find that the save system might be annoying or lacking. But honestly, you're not going to get a complaint from me because I think it adds to the strategy of it all. The music in the game reminded me a little bit of classic Castlevania. Some tunes were pretty catchy, but some were unfortunately forgettable. It just happens. You can't win them all. The effects sounded and worked well with what they represented, and I didn't find anything out of place while rushing and jumping around the world. The one area I do wish we got more of was in the voice acting. Now, in this game, there's almost none present. Sometimes Shantae will utter a single word or a couple of words at the start of a scene or mention someone's name, but other than that, these short instances are left empty. You're left to read the rest. It's just there for you to read. And there's honestly a surprising amount of writing to be read. Now, again, don't get me wrong, I have absolutely no issue reading the story in my games, but with the gorgeous artwork presented to us, it just almost seems like the voiceover would be perfect for this. We get so much story scenes, and the tease just feels like the game would be perfect to have voice acting. So I know the next game was kickstarted. I understand budgets and all that, but hopefully in the next game we get to hear the cute and vibrant characters speak fully throughout the entire game. If you've made it this far, you already know that I love this game. It feels great to play, it's super fun, and I didn't want to put it down. Now, some of the achievements look to be really challenging, so if you're an achievement hunter, keep that in mind. A fun challenge, but a challenge all the same. If you're a fan of old school gaming, right down to the final level that may have you questioning your sanity after failing so often, this has that with a new school coat of paint. A vibrant, sometimes sexy and really pretty coat of paint with plenty of humor to keep you interested and invested until the end. The game is challenging enough to be difficult, but difficult enough to be challenging. Now, someone out there understands what I mean, and if you're that person, or even if you're not, this is definitely worth your time. Now, when it comes to score, we here at the Vertical Slice do things a little bit differently than everyone else. Basically, what we do is we don't do it on a 5, 10, or even 100-point scale. We do it as if this was a report card and you were in school and you were getting graded. Now, I feel like the reason why we do that is because some sites out there, they'll give a game a 6 out of 10, and that's actually an okay score, but some sites, that's not a good score, and I think that with everyone understanding what a report card and those grades, at least in America, what they mean, I think it's a little bit easier to understand where games fall if you see a specific letter there. You can gauge it based off of that. So with that said, I don't think it's any surprise to find out that this game got an A from me. It's definitely worth that score in my opinion. Obviously, this is a review. That is what an opinion is. That's what a review is. It is an opinion. So definitely worth your time. If you have even an inkling and this game looks good to you, you should definitely go out and buy it when it launches. If it's out now, you should definitely look into it. If you don't have an Xbox One and you have a 3DS or a Wii or Steam, or if it's out on PlayStation 4 by this point, look into it. It's definitely worth your time. I think especially if you're a fan of those old school games, you'll definitely have a good time with this game. Thank you all for watching. Now, this was our first review, our first video review at TheVerticalSlice.com, and it's something we definitely want to keep doing, or we're going to look into keep doing as best we can. Now, it's a little bit tough to keep the lights on all the time, but if it's feasible for us to do it, we're definitely going to try and do a video review as well as a written review each time we review a game. Now, if you liked this video, if you liked what you saw in a written review or whatever it was from our site, let us know, comment, subscribe to our channel, follow us on our website at TheVerticalSlice.com, share this stuff with your friends so, everyone else can see what you saw if you enjoyed it. I mean, if you didn't enjoy it, that's perfectly fine. I would recommend you don't send it to people if you did enjoy it, but even if you didn't enjoy it, send it out to your friends. Maybe they'll enjoy it. You never know. I mean, there are things that I love that I didn't think I'd like, and there are things that I hate that I didn't think my friends would like, and you know what? They loved them. Again, thank you all for watching. Heazie, out. I gotta come up with a better sign-off phrase. That's so dumb.